compliment. Thank you very much, Chris. It was an honor to sit in that chair that last weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
Well, President Trump is set to depart for Charlotte in just a few hours after stumping for Republican Senate candidate Mike Braun last night in Indiana. The president taking swipes at Hillary Clinton and the Russia investigation before taking his own Justice Department to task.
Our Justice Department and our FBI have to start doing their job and doing it right and doing it now. What's happening is a disgrace. If it doesn't straighten out properly, I want them to do their job. I will get involved and I'll get in there if I have to.
So what does that mean? Doug McElway joins us now live from the White House. Doug.
Well, John, it appeared that the relationship between President Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions could not have gotten any worse after last week when the Attorney General said that he would not be improperly influenced by political considerations. Well, last night, it did get worse. Late yesterday afternoon, the president did an interview with 3 Bloomberg reporters in the Oval Office. And now, quoting from the follow-up Bloomberg piece, President Donald Trump said Attorney General Jeff Sessions' job is safe at least until the November elections in November. Asked if he'd keep Sessions beyond November, he declined to comment. The president went on to vaguely suggest that Sessions' fate may hinge on whether or not he opens an investigation into Hillary Clinton. Listen up to the audio.
I'd just like to have Jeff Sessions do his job, and if he did, I'd be very happy. But the job entails 2 sides, not 1 side.
That apparently a reference to opening an investigation into Hillary Clinton. A few hours later, at last night's rally in Indiana, the president threatened to intervene himself. To what extent, he did not say. As specific as he got was that clip which you just played, saying, quote, "I will get involved, I'll get in there if I have to." The president's frustration is clearly mounting, no doubt magnified by the prospects of Democrats taking over the House in the midterm elections, at which point all Republican investigations of all things DOJ, all things FBI, and Russian collusion will come to an abrupt halt to be replaced by Democratic investigations in the House of all things Donald Trump, potentially leading up to impeachment proceedings, although many Democratic leaders are suggesting that should not be done for fear of the blowback in the 2020 presidential elections. John?
So this is a big
into Hillary Clinton. Listen up to the audio.
On boosting its capacity to build more weapons there in an effort to deter enemy attacks. The news coming amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and Iran over President Trump's decision to pull out of the controversial nuclear deal.
What greater cause could we hope to serve in helping keep America the strong, aspiring, inspirational beacon of liberty and defender of the dignity of all human beings and their right to freedom and equal justice? That is the cause that binds us and is so much more powerful and worthy than the small differences that divide us.
We're awaiting a ceremony celebrating the life of John McCain, the late senator set to receive the extraordinary honor of lying in state today in the Capitol Rotunda, where he served for nearly 4 decades. Let's bring in Annalise Sauer. She was the Minority Staff Director of the Senate Armed Services Committee when McCain was a ranking member. Annalise, that story we just heard, sort of ominous news out of Iran, that's the kind of thing that Senator McCain would have been all over. The military and America's strength was a key component of his service there on Capitol Hill.
Yes, John, you're exactly right. I was privileged to work with him on military issues as his defense LA for several years and as the staff director on Armed Services Committee. He was unfailingly on the side of our military men and women and their families. He put national security in front of every other issue of importance to him, and there were many, many issues in which he played a prominent part. His unfailing attitude of going after what's right, even if he only got 2 votes on an amendment on the Senate floor, was inspirational, and it was awesome, and he will be greatly missed in this very difficult time in which we find ourselves.
I wonder if you can take me back to the very first time you met him. I mean, he was something of a legend, and it must have been a little intimidating.
He was less of a legend when I first met him as Navy liaison officer. I was working with Senator John Tower at the time, who was Senator McCain's mentor and one of his reasons for getting into politics. He was amusing, he was irreverent, he was a hell of a lot of fun, but he worked very, very hard, and his growth and his success as a United States Senator representing Arizona and our nation across the world is inspirational to me.
And the seeds he planted, I mean, we've spoken with people like former Senator Kelly Ayotte, who really learned a lot about the armed services and America's place in the world from Senator McCain. Those seeds that he has planted will live on among sitting senators, will they not?
Absolutely. We miss Senator Ayotte very much. She was a terrific senator representing her people, and she was a very good friend to Senator McCain. He has left behind a legacy with Senator Graham and others here, as well as people who are serving in all walks of our government and in the private sector, to honor the legacy of his commitment to our country.
Of a legend, and it must have been a little intimidating.
He was amusing, he was irreverent, he was a hell of a lot of fun.
The armed services and America's place in the world from Senator McCain.
He has left behind a legacy of
the 30th.
to be included with his family and friends. We're going to have a tough weekend, and I hope he's looking down on us from heaven and just enjoying every moment of it.
I imagine he has a smile. He often did. Annalise Sauer, thanks very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Fox News alert: a chaotic scene after a semi-truck collides with a bus in New Mexico. What police are saying may have caused this deadly crash.
Plus, a former NBC News producer who worked with Ronan Farrow says the network spiked its story on sexual assault allegations against Harvey Weinstein. How NBC is responding. That network to stop pursuing their story on sexual assault allegations against Harvey Weinstein, an investigation that Farrow ultimately was able to publish in the New Yorker magazine. Rich McHugh saying in a statement, quote, "I was told not to do the interview and ordered to stand down, thus effectively killing the story. That was unethical and a massive breach of journalistic integrity." But NBC denies those claims, saying, quote, "The assertion that NBC News tried to kill the Weinstein story while Ronan Farrow was at NBC News, or even more ludicrously, after he left NBC News, is an outright lie."
Fox News alert as we learn more about a horrific bus crash in New Mexico. 7 people are confirmed dead now after a Greyhound bus collided head-on with a semi-truck Thursday near the Arizona border. According to state police, the truck blew a tire, crossed over the median, and hit the bus. Jonathan Hunt joins us from our Los Angeles bureau. Jonathan, this is just a horrific scene.
Yeah, Sandra, we were watching as the first pictures started trickling in from this remote part of New Mexico, and it was obvious straight away that this was a major incident and many were likely to be killed and injured. The front of the bus was essentially ripped off completely. 49 people were on board. It had left Albuquerque yesterday afternoon, heading ultimately here to LA. But about 2 hours into the journey, this horrific scene unfolded. Other drivers who were on I-40 at the time jumped out of their vehicles and became, in essence, first responders. Listen here.
There was a lot of people with injuries. It was all the way from the most minor to the most severe, which you can only imagine what most severe could be. So it was going from that. It was a lot of screaming and yelling and a lot of people in need and just going to anybody for help.
7 people confirmed dead, as you said, Sandra. Several are still in local hospitals in
while to go through and actually identify who was sitting where and who were the drivers and who were the passengers.
Greyhound put out a statement in which they said, in part, quote, "We are fully cooperating with local authorities and will also complete an investigation of our own." A genuinely horrific scene on I-40, Sandra, and in some ways, when you look at those pictures, it is a miracle that many more people on board that bus were not killed.
Thank goodness
Sandra?
for that. Jonathan Hunt, thank you.
President Trump issues a warning to his own Justice Department, what it could mean for Jeff Sessions' future as Attorney General. Karl Rove joins us to weigh in.
Plus, we'll take you live to the star-studded celebration of the life of Aretha Franklin. California fire officials finally declaring the Carr wildfire fully contained. The devastating fire broke out last month, scorching nearly 360 square miles in and around Redding in Northern California, becoming the 7th largest wildfire in state history. 8 people lost their lives and more than 1,000 homes were destroyed.
The U.S. State Department says it's investigating citizenship fraud along the U.S.-Mexico border, claiming people are using fake birth certificates to apply for U.S. passports. Casey Stiegel is in Dallas with more on that. Casey?
John, good to see you. Fraud is the State Department's reasoning for taking a closer look at these birth documents. More on that in a second, but immigration lawyers, this came to light because they started reporting a big increase, a large spike in the number of clients that were coming to them saying that their U.S. passports had been called into question, despite having a U.S. birth certificate and despite being classified as a U.S. citizen their whole lives.
I don't think they have changed their policies, but obviously there has been a change. Where, it's hard to tell, because how can you issue one the first time without a problem, and then the second time, when they go to renew, now there's a problem.
It's also hard to tell because the numbers are tough to gauge. The State Department doesn't release stats when it comes to passport fraud investigations for security reasons. So there are some reports of people being stuck in Mexico, their passports allegedly revoked when trying to re-enter the U.S., or even some cases of people being detained at immigration detention centers. However, the U.S. State Department pushing back on many of these reports, saying fraudulent birth documents were once prevalent. In a statement, Heather Nauert, a spokesperson for the State Department, says this is an irresponsible attempt to create division and stoke fear among American citizens while attempting to inflame tensions over immigration. Under the Trump administration, domestic passport denials for so-called midwife cases are at a 6-year low. The midwife is important to mention because midwives and physicians down along the Texas-Mexico border were accused in the past of creating fraudulent birth documents. And so that's why they're speaking to midwives there. And the State Department says anyone that was involved or delivered by one of these physicians that's under review, they're taking a closer look at those cases, John.
Yeah, let's hope they get to the bottom of it. Casey Stiegel, thank you.
It's a whole lot. Yeah.
Moments from now, funeral services begin for Aretha Franklin in Detroit. Legendary musicians set to perform and pay their respects to the Queen of Soul. We'll have more on this as it gets underway.
And another celebration of life about to begin on Capitol Hill, honoring John McCain. How Washington is thanking the Arizona senator for decades of service to his country.